In this video, I will give a brief explanation of GDP, including what it is, how it works, and some flaws within GDP that prevent it from being an adequate measure of a country's well-being. To begin, GDP measures total production within a country or economy and is measured by taking the market value of all final goods and services produced within that country or economy. Final goods and services include all goods and services that are purchased by its final user and are not included in the production of any other goods or services. The reason we only count final goods and services for GDP is because if we were to count intermediate goods and services, we would then be double counting. GDP includes only production that takes place during the indicated time period. When GDP increases from year to year, the increase is partly due to increases in production and partly due to increases in price. Because GDP is the value added to an economy through increased production, it is in our best interest to eliminate the price factor from GDP. By doing this, we are given the real GDP by evaluating the value of final goods and services at a base year rather than a year-to-year basis. This allows us to calculate the changes in quantity of final goods and services while eliminating changes in price. However, calculating using a base year can cause distortions in real GDP, therefore we must use chain-weighted prices as another alternative. This involves taking an average in prices starting at the base year and calculating an average on a year-to-year basis, eliminating the distortions found in real GDP. In contrast, we can also take the nominal GDP, which is the GDP given in current prices without adjusting for inflation. This is calculated by summing the current value of final goods and services in the current time period. Now, some people claim that GDP is a good indicator of a country's well-being. However, it can be argued that GDP only provides a rough estimate of well-being. Therefore, it is far from perfect when deciphering a country's well-being. This is due in part to the fact that the more an individual works, the more GDP will rise, but the lower your well-being is as you suffer from a lack of free time to devote to things like your family, hobbies, self-improvement, etc. In addition to this, crime is a major aspect of government spending in which spending will increase as crime rates increase. This will raise the GDP of an economy and give the false perception of better well-being when in reality crime rates have increased, causing more government spending on things like prison. On top of this, citizens are at a higher risk of falling victim to the increased crime rates, decreasing the overall well-being of society as a whole. In addition to this, when a country's GDP rises, the increase in goods and services may not be distributed evenly. Therefore, GDP is not a good representation of the typical person's consumption, nor the wealth distribution as a result of sales from the increased production. All these factors contribute to the overall nature of GDP and demonstrate how GDP is not an accurate representation of a country's or economy's well-being.